1. Hi, my name is LaQuincy Reed, and I'm with Jerry Bennett. He was a previous artist here at the Skirvin in the space program. Jerry, just go ahead and give us a little bit more introduction about yourself.
Sure. So I am a full-time illustrator, mainly focusing on comic books and graphic novels. I'm currently doing one called Glamorella's Daughter with Charles J. Martin, who is the publisher of Literati Press Comics out in the Paseo District in Oklahoma City. And the comic itself is about a young child on the autism spectrum whose mother is the basically the Superman of that world. And so they have a really unique kind of opposites relationship, and they're trying to understand each other in the world and the adventures that they're in. But I've been focusing on that pretty much my whole life. I've been reading comic books since I was in third grade. That's when I even started drawing. And so I'm currently also the art resident at the University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma in Chickasha, currently serving as an art resident and a teacher. I'm teaching a comic book art class there. That's been a lot of fun so far. And I'm also the illustrator coordinator for the Oklahoma-Arkansas region of the SCBWI, which is the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators.
Okay. So you mentioned that you've been drawing since the third grade. Were you drawing superheroes? Because that's how I got my start. My uncles and I, we were sitting on my grandmother's sun porch, and we would make up our own superheroes, and we were drawing our own superheroes. And, you know, that's kind of how I think a lot of us get our start. So is that kind of the same thing with you?
That was quickly the next step for me. Star Wars and Star Wars comics was what sucked me in pretty much. I was, as soon as I'd seen Star Wars, I wanted everything related to Star Wars. And so Marvel then quickly came out with Star Wars comics, and so I was buying those and tracing off all the characters and ships, and then I was learning to like try to figure out like what my own designs of ships in that world would look like, and then quickly Superman, Fantastic Four followed. Yeah.
Okay, that kind of explains a little bit of my next question. So I was scrolling through like all of your work and everything that you've done, and it's really interesting and unique because I see you have like, you draw caricatures, kind of.
Yeah.
And then you have more of a comic book style. And then you have a style that's like borderline photorealistic, I want to say. Like, so that's kind of interesting because it seems like you're really broad in, you know, how you draw and what you draw. So is that kind of fueled by just being interested in the different styles that you come across whenever you're working with like popular culture, I guess?
I think so. I've always had a love affair with pen and ink and all the different styles and all the different things you can do with it. I love all the textures that you can create either through cross-hatching or pointillism. In fact, it was pointillism, pen and ink, that was kind of my first foray into entering the Oklahoma arts community, because I'd entered a contest with which gallery was it? I'm not even sure if this gallery is actually, I can't even remember the gallery. But it's been a hot minute. But I did a pointillism of Mother Teresa, and it took place in their 24 works on paper. But I've always been fascinated with just those textures, and I guess I had enough focus where I could like easily, you know, like spend that time, because like that pointillism that took about 80 hours total. It was one of the few ones I'd actually logged my hours, and it you know, I allowed that time to fly for me, and so I guess I've come to appreciate a lot of different styles and like to experiment with all those styles, whether it's just in my comic books or whether it's in my children's illustration or whether it's like hardcore realism illustration. So yeah, I like to mess with it all, I think.
Yeah. So that's pointillism is kind of funny because when I was an art teacher, I would tell the kids pointillism it looks great, but I don't want you guys to feel like you have to do it because it'll drive you crazy.
Sure.
So
I'm surprised it didn't. I'm surprised it didn't make me crazy. But yeah. I loved something about the challenge of seeing those textures and trying to like the challenge of keeping the gradients smooth, you know, and I'll something in me clicked. There was like some kind of left right brain cohesion that worked, because like I feel like there's a lot of left brainness in that kind of medium, because you have to see those areas that require a few more dots, and how to equalize that if you're trying to smooth out a gradient in that. And so something didn't make me crazy.
I told the kids, I was like, I more power to you, but I'd rather you not do it because it'll drive you crazy.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
So speaking of that, your process. So I know a lot of comic book artists, a lot of graphic novelists. They'll draw it, and then the labor's kind of divided up. So you have a penciler, an inker, and then a colorist. What all do you do? Do you do all three steps? Do you break it up like that, or do you do the drawing and the pen and ink? How does your process work for a graphic novel?
It really depends on like if I'm working with someone or working with a company. For like with Glamorella's Daughter, I am doing all of the pencils and inks. Although I'm doing all that digitally now. The digital medium is just like unreal, awesome as far as how well they've allowed a lot of the mediums to look very traditional in its appearance. And so, and it helps since, if you have deadlines, it's nice to be able to correct easily.
Yeah.
And so, with Glamorella's Daughter, I will I'll use pen and ink, digital pen and ink to complete over the digital pencils. And then I'll actually hand that off to a person who will do the color flats, basically saying, they do that one flat shade or flat color over the comic. And then I'll take it and add one more layer, which I call my shade layer. And it's almost like a cell shade, if you know terms in animation. So I'll add that one shade just to give more depth and more feel to it and more dimension. But if it's something like I'm trying to write and illustrate a few things myself, and so I'll play with doing the whole process, even the lettering and the balloons. And I've had a lot of fun because right now, I feel like I'm still experimenting with a lot of different digital techniques as far as all the different brushes that are out there. And I'll do a lot of there's a lot of halftone brushes, so I'll play with halftone textures and techniques, and it's yielded a lot of different results. Some expected, some not expected, some very pleasant not expected ones. And so I'm really just kind of just still enjoying the ride of all the different things that are at my disposal now. So it's a number of things. I don't mind. In fact, I think a final goal would be to do everything from start to finish. I think that's maybe that's a control freak thing in me, but what's funny is that's kind of like something that was unexpected that I could do as a comic book creator, because initially when I went to college, I was actually focused on being a storyteller for Disney or Pixar. In fact, this was way before Pixar, actually.
Yeah.
So I'd always wanted to enter that realm as a storyteller and a director, but being able to go in the comics medium allows me to have all this more control, and the budget's not near as crazy. So, yeah.
So how hard is it to pass off work to another artist? Because I'll give you an example. One of my favorite comic book artists is Jim Lee. I don't know if you know who he is.
I know Jim Lee.
Yeah, everybody knows Jim Lee.
Huge influence.
When I was growing up in the 90s, he was everybody's favorite, I think.
Yeah.
So Jim Lee and Scott Williams, those two guys go together really well.
Yeah.
And you can tell when they do it. And so I didn't know if it's really hard to pass off and have that kind of relationship, or is it really easy, or how tough is that?
That's a great question. And honestly, I haven't had a great experience with that, only because it's my own fault. My pencil layer is such a rough shod. It's very sketchy, very loose. It wouldn't be a good finished piece to send off to an inker, because I don't have very clean pencils.
Yeah.
Although I I do like the idea of that, but I've been like ever since, because of my love for pen and ink.
Yeah.
I just always taken control of that. But I do love the idea because there's so many amazing inkers out there. Scott Williams, well, in fact, what's funny is the inking medium. It seems like there's fewer and fewer people who excel in that because of the technology,
Yeah.
and people wanting to control their own work. But I think of there's several Klaus Janson. There's so many people who have their own unique styles, and even like Jim Lee. If you've ever seen any of his inked like stuff that
Yeah.
he inked himself, you can see the difference in style between his and Scott Williams, and
Yeah.
so it's interesting to see all the different style variety and all the different inkings. And so I would love to get to a point where I could have cleaner pencils to hand over to someone who would ink. And in fact, I know several inkers I would love to collaborate with locally here. And so, but I've not made it easy for any inkers to tackle my work.
Yeah. Well, I did want to transition and ask you about being here at the Skirvin in the studio here. I've only been here for about maybe 2 weeks now, and I was talking to you earlier. It's been really great for me. So how was it for you being here?
Oh man, it was unbelievable. I mean, the Skirvin staff, they were all so welcoming. They were all...
Well, I do want to hold up and let you know that I've met some of the staff,
Oh,
and
good.
they specifically said that you were one of their favorites. So
They are too kind. I've had it. It was like a dream, really, because between the way they treated me and the reception that I got from people just like walking by, down the street or walking through the hotel, it's been amazing. It was a great opportunity to, one, show people the medium of comic books, because like people know comic books. In fact, like when I was here, I think the term funny book was probably still prevalent.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, and we're at an age where Marvel and DC, with all the movies, so people know comic books. They know comic book movies,
Yeah.
but they don't know comic books that much.
Yeah.
And so it was really neat to show people that side, and to allow people to understand that this is an elevated art form. And I think, like the Oklahoma City, the arts community here has been so welcoming to me in seeing that this kind of art is definitely, an elevated art medium. And so my time here was really, really favorable. And something I wasn't even expecting that I thought was a really neat side bonus was just all the people that stayed here. It was amazing, and of course I was hoping that this would be the case, that a lot of people that were staying here would come in and visit, and I had lots of families come in that were staying here.
Yeah.
And I got to show them, had fun little exercises for kids and adults alike, to learn the process of penciling, learn little aspects of drawing anatomy and how style affects anatomy, and inking even. Had a lot of fun projects where they could ink over like blue pencil pages. And but one side thing was all the opportunities for work that I didn't think I was even expecting to get.
Yeah.
A lot of people from all over the nation, all over the world, had a lot of really neat projects that they wanted me involved in. So that was a very neat thing that I was not expecting out of that. So yeah, it allowed me to get a lot more exposure than I had really anticipated. I just thought maybe the arts community, would get to see this and come to all the openings, and I would have like this amazing dedicated space to work in. But it allowed for a lot of really unique ventures with a lot of other people that I wouldn't have necessarily thought I would be working with.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. And then one other thing that you get to do is you get to donate a work of art to the Skirvin, and they actually have it upstairs.
Yes.
Would you like to go upstairs and we can talk about that?
I would love to. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm dying to see it.
All right. Well, that's great. Let's go ahead and we'll break everything down here and we'll go up there and we'll talk about it.
Sounds great.
All right. So here we are with your work that you donated to the Skirvin. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, so most of my stuff is all pop culture related usually, and one of the cool things that I got to do as a theme for the whole residency was involve the Skirvin themselves in like the adventure, in the comic story, so to say. And so I did several pieces that involved architecture or interiors of the Skirvin, and the piece that I donated to them was one where I had pretended that the Empire was basically checking into the hotel, and so I had elements of characters all throughout. Of course, stormtroopers were just lining up the place as Vader and the Emperor came into the front desk. And what was cool is I do take lots of reference images because there's a lot of detail in the beauty of the interior and architecture of this place. And I was able to take some photos, and two of the people at the front desk were very kind in modeling for me. And so these two in particular, Eric and Audrey, I asked them to just do specific things that were especially as part of their what they normally do. Because there was no one at the desk at the time, and so I had them pretend to do what they normally do, So it was funny, as I had Audrey pretend to be talking to Lord Vader, I had to have her look up because Vader is such a large guy, and so it was just a super fun thing to do that allowed me to involve participation with the Skirvin and the Skirvin, the building itself, and it was I just had total fun with it. Got to play with a lot of detail, and leaving something black and white like this, I definitely have to be careful in not going overboard, in losing detail, losing contrast, trying to capture the right amount of shading that would not go too far where it'd be too dark or what have you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing that was really interesting for me is I like to figure out what you're doing when you're doing it.
Yeah.
Or when I'm looking at it, is I can see kind of your little sketch marks from where you're laying everything out, and then it looks like you kind of drew it with pencil, then inked it up, and then erased it. Is that kind of what you did?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm really bad about missing pencil. So if you caught pencil, that would not surprise me in the least. But there, because by the time I'm finished with the inking and letting it dry enough where I'd be comfortable enough with erasing, the lead is almost its own color of texture because it's smeared. All that lead is just smeared, and so when I start erasing, you start seeing that white very clearly. And so, but like in some areas, I'm sure I've missed some, but I try to be as thorough as I can.
No, you can.
Yeah.
So what kind of ink do you use? That's the other question I had for you.
I use a lot of different kinds. And what's funny is during the residency, I was playing with some new pens and new inks and new brushes. There's some amazing brushes from, like Raphael, some expensive brushes. And so there's one particular one, Raphael, which I use almost exclusively on this. It has a nice tight line. You can capture a lot of good control. And I'm not really great with control altogether, but I like that part of myself that just allows a little bit of organic flavor to it all. But I noticed with the inks, as I was testing some new inks, I find that some of them were more black than not, and some of them, I'm trying to remember which brand it was. It produced a really gray black. It was not even black. It was like a charcoal gray.
Really?
And so it really took away from what I was trying to do with it. So I quickly painted over some of this, and so I think Higgins. Mm-hmm. Not to diss on Higgins, but I think they were that gray black. But there's some other ones. I'm trying to remember. Excuse me, which one it was. I'm totally forgetting names because I've been so immersed in digital art nowadays. Yeah. I hardly get time to do some actual pen and ink stuff. So it's been years. It's been literal years since I've really got to play with some pen and ink.
Yeah. Well, I know you got to get on out of here. I really appreciate you visiting with me and talking about your work. What are you doing besides the graphic novel? Are you Are you doing anything else?
I'm actually getting ready to jump back into actual pen and ink because I'll be doing a show in June at USAO.
Okay.
And so I'm getting to experiment with a few things there, and including maybe even trying some like color amidst my pen and ink work. And so I'm going to get to have some fun experimenting there. But in the meantime, I have a middle grade focused graphic novel that I'm writing and illustrating, and so I've been polishing the script and then working on concept art, concept character designs, and hopefully we'll be able to start drawing pages on that. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Any socials that you want me to?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Instagram is my biggie, at artist Jerry Bennett.
Okay.
And then I do Twitter, Jerry Bennett Art, and then honestly, that's about it because like I have a Facebook page, but I always have all my Instagram posts sent to my personal page. So you can follow my personal page, which is I think just Jerry Bennett or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Once again, really appreciate you visiting with me and talking about your artwork, and we'll call it a day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.